John Fredericks Radio Network. Joining us now, my good friend, State Senator, Democrat, Joe Morrissey, Virginia. Joe Morrissey holding the line against radical, crazy legislation. I don't know what we do without him there. He is the guy in the Virginia Senate, and that assembly will convene in 2 weeks, I think on January, 18th or something. I got to get the exact date. Joe will tell us that. Unlike the House of Representatives, that's doing Zoom. And Joe's State Senate is meeting in the Science Museum. The media is open to the media, and they're completely transparent, and he's with us now. Joe, Happy New Year. Great to have you.
John, thanks so much. Happy New Year to you, your staff, your family. It's good to be back on your network. And the General Assembly meets Wednesday, January 13th for what is known as our short session, 45 days. Anyway, appreciate your reminding your listening audience about my moderate voice in the Senate. I would like to think that I am a bridge between both sides, and I want you to remember that as I launch into what I saw take place, not just yesterday, but in the days leading up to the atrocities that I saw yesterday. All right?
Sure.
Let me begin by saying this. John, it's one thing I listened to your monologue as you re-entered the show, the hour, about picking up the Republican Party, etc. I get your saying that. And people need to, your folks, Republicans, it's probably good that they hear that. But before we do that, let's be clear that what happened yesterday, I was not just appalled by, John, I was angry. I have lived in 3 foreign countries. I've looked at the United States from across oceans. There's everything that I love about our country began with our Constitution in 1787. But what I saw yesterday was nothing short of disgraceful. And I think that you, and I say this respectfully, other conservative talk show hosts around the country have to begin there by absolutely denouncing those people that stormed the Capitol. You remember, I was on your show some time ago, and you asked me to comment about the people in Richmond that were looting and rioting and burning, and they were protesters. No other Democrat came out and said it. I did. And I said that their behavior was only warranted one thing: arrest and incarceration. It was disgraceful, the destruction of personal property, and it was nothing more than an abject riot. And I denounced them in no uncertain terms. And what happened yesterday needs to be denounced. Now, many of your Republican leaders did that, John. Yesterday, I'm glad that the Senate and the House reconvened in the evening, because I would not have wanted 24 hours to go by, because it ended on a note the way our country was founded and what happened in 1800 with people like, Mitch McConnell. He urged his colleagues not to damage democracy by objecting to the Electoral College vote. And he said that the rioters tried to disrupt democracy, but they failed. He said, regarding the voters, he said the voters, the courts, the people, the states have spoken. And then Mitt Romney, who's not your favorite, I get it, gave an impassioned speech when he clearly held President Trump responsible. And he said, when elected leaders fail to show respect by telling the voters the truth, they fuel groundless doubt. And what happened today, he said, quote, was insurrection incited by the President of the United States. And, John, we've got to begin by that. I understand your support for Trump, but going to that rally, urging them to march on the Capitol, and then what happened later was a was a travesty.
Well, Joe, what happened later was a travesty, but he certainly didn't expect that to happen, nor did he advocate that.
I would agree.
And he came out with a couple of statements saying go home peacefully. So, I mean, that's not true. Look, Mitt Romney does what Mitt Romney does. He's a swamp monster that sold our jobs out to Vietnam and Singapore and China when he had a venture capitalist company. That's how he made his money, so he could cut jobs and cut wages, buy companies, cut them down, fire people. I mean, that's who Mitt Romney is. So I don't really give a rat's ass what Mitt Romney says. He's a piece of crap. So I just don't care.
John, it's not
right?
just,
but Trump did not incite that yesterday, so it's not really fair to say that, Joe, because he didn't do that. And look, you can't condone violence ever. And so I'm with you there. That was my narrative when I got on the air. But
yes.
This had nothing to do with the president. Lady was shot. That's horrible. And looting. And now here's where I'm going to say you're right. Okay, and this is what my national audience has to know. Joe Morrissey, during the looting and the looting and destruction of property on Monument Avenue and Richmond, Joe got on my show every day and blasted it and said those people should be arrested and held to account, that Stoney should have a police ring and that it was unacceptable and they're destroying the city. So I'll say this, Joe, you're consistent, and thank you for that.
But John, let me just say this. The most important thing about our democracy is a transition, and an orderly transition. And having lived abroad, I can tell you that people admire and respect the United States beyond all other measure when they see that orderly transition. We've had challenging times. We had it in the 1876 with Tilden Hayes. We had it with the Adams-Jefferson early 19th century transition. And you remember that people were amazed that Adams, who despised Jefferson and lost a second term, congratulated him, and there was a peaceful transition. Throughout Europe, they watched that and they go, I can't believe that's happening. But that was the beginning of what people respect about transitions in government. It happened again in 32 between Hoover and FDR. It happened in 2000 with Gore Bush. I wrote my master's thesis on that election. And say what you want, but Gore, at the end, when the Supreme Court finally shut down the voting in Florida, said, we have a rule of law. The Supreme Court has spoken. The election is over. And therein was an orderly procession to the next 8 years of George Bush. So I agree that the president did not say, go down and storm the Capitol and take lives and take over people's offices. I agree. But this is what I object to, John. You may recall because December 13th, it was a Sunday, and Trump, they were about to have the Electoral College vote, and Trump said, irrespective of what the Electoral College vote takes place the next day, Monday, he said, I'm going to continue challenging the results of 2020. And he did. And immediately after the Electoral College met on December 14th in state capitals across the country, there was a last-gasp effort by the Texas Attorney General to overturn the election in 4 states. And it went to the Supreme Court, and it was rejected soundly, 9-0. And 3 of those Supreme Court justices were appointed by the president. And it was thereafter that people that you've had on your show, that people that you admire, not just Mitch McConnell, who congratulated Biden, or Lindsey Graham, who spoke to Biden's cabinet picks, but Mike Pompeo, who met with his likely successor. All the Republican leaders across the country said, okay, that's it. The Electoral College has spoken on December 14th. Not Trump. Not Trump. He went on to say, this is not over. We will continue to challenge it. And he called, what occurred a sham and a shame. That's the problem, John, right there. I agree that he had every right to challenge the election post-November 3rd. I get it. But he did that. And in 60 days, there were 27 lawsuits. There were 91 judges, many of whom were appointed by Trump, that reviewed those 27 court challenges. They lost all 27 challenges. And I got tired of hearing the president say, there is a mountain of evidence of fraud. John, as a lawyer, as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, I learned to follow the evidence. And you know what? I was, in some way, I wanted to see what that evidence was, and it never, ever materialized, other than the president saying there are mountains of evidence. And so that's what I'm talking about, not having an orderly transition. And I'll end my spiel by saying I was grateful at the end of yesterday's proceedings that the president did say there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. Although he didn't concede, no concession, no congratulations, he did acknowledge there will be an orderly transition, and we ended a tumultuous day on that note.
Well, Joe, thank you for saying that, and I think the president, had every right to play everything out. Many of us that are involved in investigating this, like I am, spending 8 weeks here in Georgia, know that I can't talk to any of the other states, and I say that on the air all the time. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, whatever it is, can't talk to them. I can't talk to Georgia. And the level of vote fraud that went on in November 3rd in Georgia was beyond the pale. And it's eventually going to get investigated. Gardner Favorino's got a hearing today at 4. He's on my show at 9. Eventually it's going to get adjudicated. Doesn't matter now. Biden is going to put his hand on the Bible. But going forward in the General Assembly, they're going to fix the egregious laws that were overturned by some deal that allowed what happened here in Georgia to happen, and the Democrats took full advantage of it. And Stacey Abrams ran rings around the current leadership, and they ended up winning everything as a result of that. But it's all going to come out.
That's a great point, John.
But look, I'm now moved beyond this. Okay, the Georgia General Assembly is Republican. They're meeting on Monday. They have one mission, and that is to clean up the voting laws in Georgia so this can't happen again. And if they do it, they become a blueprint for other Republican legislators around the country. And those that aren't Republican, the voters are going to have to stand up and make them Republican so they get real vote laws that, didn't happen in Georgia. Drop boxes, no chain of custody. Ballots like in lying on a Starbucks counter. All this stuff that went on. It's all going to come out. We're going to see what happens. But I've moved beyond that. Yesterday, look, under any circumstances, never, ever under any circumstances should there be violence. And within the MAGA movement, we've had all these rallies. We have hundreds of thousands of people. We've never had this before. And so, I don't condone it, and it's shameful, but we have to move forward now.
But, and John, you were correct when you talked. That's good. The Georgia legislature meeting to discuss how the voting took place. That is a purposeful and productive step. And you said that Republican legislatures across the country need to look at what will ultimately be a Georgia blueprint. Well, let me tell you something. I also agree, and I'm not a Republican, that there needs to be a better blueprint for that voting. And let me be specific. And I'm sure these are some of the things that legislatures will take up. Number one, I agree that our system is not prepared to handle such widespread voting by mail, the early voting. That needs to be looked at. I agree. Widespread absentee voting was cause problems and confusion. And we should absolutely, in the future, prohibit anyone other than state and local election officials from distributing absentee ballot applications.
Right.
And prohibiting ballot harvesting by outside parties. Those two things need to be done.
Right.
You do not distribute. We all know that a ballot is distributed only by the registrar or on voting day. But the application for the absentee ballot needs greater structure and rigidity. And you cannot allow outside groups to harvest applications. Mm-hmm. And finally, we need to return to the idea of an election day as opposed to election week or election month.
Or election season.
Or election season. In the past, right. There was something, precious, sacred about voting on election day. Mm-hmm. I get it that seniors that are bedridden or ill, there's got to be exceptions for those folks that literally can't get out of bed, go to the polling place and vote. But it cannot be as widespread as it was. And to that extent, maybe that might be the silver lining that we find in this election, 2020, as we move forward, that we can make the voting process better going forward. John, I look forward to coming on your show during the General Assembly session and sharing with you what's going on and alerting and reminding your viewers of what's taking place in Richmond, albeit at the Science Museum.
Democratic Senator Joe Morrissey in Virginia. See, Joe, this is why you're my best friend, and this is why I love you. Because we might not start at the same place, but we always end up in the same place. And so we always get there because common sense, reason, intelligence, and facts, and transparency. That's what we're both about. That's why at the end of the day, we always get there. And so, yes, we need voting day, not voting season, voting quarter, whatever we had voting football season, right? Starts in August, ends in January. But so all the things you're saying are right. And at the end, we always come to the right conclusion because we're in agreement on that. And I know you're the firewall in there, and that's what I tell people every day. A lot of the crackpot, liberal, left-wing chicanery that goes on in the House with caucus of the corn. Joe's his own man. He's a Democrat. He's in their caucus, but he votes his conscience. And he's the firewall. He stopped a bunch of it, and he's going to continue to do that. Joe, we don't always agree, but I respect your mind, and I respect who you are, and I respect what you do. And that's why you're my BFF, man.
Well, thanks, John.
John Fredericks Radio Network. Joe, thank you. Get to see you soon. Say hi to Myrna. Please give her my love.